Good morning, my beautiful babes and babettes. I am your resident active advocate, and I'm cold. Today, I would like to talk to you about the sentimental view of disability. Now, as previously described, the gaze has a great deal of politics surrounding it. There is the observer and the observee, shall we say. And in the sentimental view, the one being observed is often compared to a child or an innocent, one who is just too good for this world, and it's because they were born with a disability or because they acquired a disability. It means that this person has to be strong and full of courage and full of love in order to deal with the curse that has come upon them. You can see that I'm not a big fan of this one at all. In fact, I'm not really a big fan of the gaze as applied to disability in these negative ways at all, because a lot of them are very cruel, but this one is especially condescending. And I don't find condescending people to be very intelligent about what they're observing a lot of the time. I want you to think of a book like, oh my God, what's it called? A Christmas Carol, right? By Charles Dickens. A Christmas Carol. Because you see the character of Tiny Tim, who is probably suffering from some form of scoliosis or polio, and in one version of the story, he does die. I mean, when Scrooge is being showed what his future could potentially be if he doesn't change his ways, it's all his fault that this beautiful, innocent, tiny, pure-hearted little boy died. And the whole point of Tiny Tim's story is that he hopes for people to see the poor little cripple boy and to want to be, good on his behalf and to remind people that there is still goodness in the world and that God has blessed him, and despite his deformities and all this garbage, it's garbage. I'm sorry, it is. It's just so condescending, and this is my rant of the day. Have fun. Uh, the sentimental view has carried forward even into the modern day, where, especially when applied to children, the gaze becomes this instrument of either poor you because you have a disability, or lucky you because you get to learn through having a disability how to be a better, more pure, more innocent person. But there's nothing in this view that talks about personhood, that talks about power, that talks about independence, that talks about knowledge. All of these things that would otherwise be applied to a person that they are capable of acquiring just through ordinary life experience. It has nothing to do with that. It's all about how you can learn to be more excellent and pure and an exemplar of virtue for those who live with you and observe you in your regular goings on in your life. I don't believe that people with disabilities were born for the sake of inspiring other people. We are our own people. We have autonomy, and I personally would like to exercise that autonomy. And for the people who don't want us to, because otherwise it's just a matter of, oh, well, you're not being an inspiration to me. Why are you so independent? Why aren't you being, this tiny little boxed up good little angel creature that we want to turn you into? Why can't you be that for us? Why can't you be that example for us? That is not my job. That is not my job. That is not the job of anyone with a disability. And while this applies especially to people with very visible physical disabilities, it can also apply to people with more severe intellectual disabilities, because oftentimes the sentiment is that they are more pure because they can't be defiled by like the good and evil nuances of the world, because they don't have the understanding to capitalize on either of those things. Ostensibly, you are, according to this gaze, a perpetual child. You are always going to be this dear little baby. You're always going to be mama's little baby and society's little baby. And that is self-contradictory, because we do grow up, you know, regardless of whether you have an intellectual disability. When you grow into a woman, or you grow into a man, or, you know, an adult, when you are an adult, you are an adult. And I fully believe that you deserve to be treated like one. The sentimental gaze does not agree with me on that. The politic here is that you are meant to fulfill the expectation of your society, or of your caretakers, especially of your caretakers, that you will always be there for them to take care of. In some ways, this gaze is very much based on the identity of the person who is doing the gazing, because if you maintain this childhood status and you don't assert your independence, or you don't even attempt to gain independence, you know, that's the double-edged knife, because you don't have to do anything for yourself, but on the other hand, you're not capable of doing anything for yourself. And that is where the identity of your caretaker or caretakers can come in. They are there to care for you, and you are there to be taken care of. This whole thing that I'm discussing about being a perpetual child is just carried forward, carried forward, carried forward throughout your life. If people see you as a child, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. They see you as a child, therefore they don't teach you to be independent, therefore you can't be independent, therefore you are always de facto a child. So the sentimental gaze is harmful in that it keeps us back from acting as individuals, from acting as adults, and from being allowed to grow up and to mature and to assert ourselves as fully formed human beings. This is not a good way to treat people with disabilities, because there's this whole societal thing about, oh, you're a burden, you know. But then when you don't allow us to break free of that bond, then yes, we become a burden. But the thing is, you haven't released us from those shackles that you created for us in the first place. It's just hypocritical, I find, on the part of the person who is doing the gazing, and on the part of society as a whole, because it is society as a whole that judges you, that gazes at you, and sees you as just a person with a disability. You know, the whole idea of the master status, that this is your only defining characteristic, and we don't have to care about the rest of you. I don't like that. You know I don't like that. So, that is the sentimental gaze. And tomorrow's video will be on the last of the gazes, which is the grotesque gaze. And very much like the monstrous gaze, this one is definitely among my least favorites. Least favorite of least favorites, as I said with monstrous gaze. It does diverge from the monstrous, but not very much. You'll see a good deal of overlap, but we will get to that tomorrow. Thank you for your lovely attention and your cooperation, and I will see you tomorrow, my beautiful viewers. Bye! Mwah!